$1992. What a year that was. Gosh. Well, that was the year that just about everything got turned on its ear. When we had the LA riots. I was working on my bachelor's degree at Cal State LA in psychology. And that was the year that Dean went a little nuts. He kind of went into a state of creative lunacy, creative mania, and it was causing problems in the band. Of course, I wasn't in the band at that time, but I was still watching from the sidelines. And I think, wasn't that the year that Brent and Lori got married? I'm not sure, I don't remember, but anyway. Point is, that year, the irony really played itself out, because after all, we had, in essence, cast the mold that Urban Nightmare would indeed do songs in a commercial context. I mean, after all, that was our very first public performance, was basically a collection of cover songs. Ironically, Lori has a tremendous drive to keep moving, so Dean had to go. Dean was not cutting it, and after destroying the PA system, Lori decided that was the last straw and had to get rid of him. And I don't think that was a decision that she made lightly, but, the band had to survive, and she had to do what was right for the survival of the band and the creative project. So, strangely enough, ironically enough, here I'm the guy that never wanted us to do songs. I was asked to be the lead singer for Urban Nightmare. Me with my wonderful sonorous tenor voice. But of course I readily accepted it because I really wanted to be part of it again. And I just figured that it would be a good creative outlet, and I figured that it would give me a chance to get back to the roots. So I became the lead singer of Urban Nightmare. And we got my old guitar player from Overture, Paul Erie, somebody who I'd actually known since junior high school. Got him to play guitar, and then we got this guy Jamie. I think he was a co-worker of Lori's at the phone company, and he had been a graduate of G.I.T, so I figured that would be a good thing. And and certainly he did know how to play a guitar, there's no doubt about that. So we got our rehearsal space down at Downtown Studios, and we started doing it. We started rehearsing. And we did some songs, Seven Wonders, we did Fiery Kisses, a song that Lori wanted to sing. We did a song called Liquid Entertainment, about the wonders of alcoholism. And I think one or two of the songs that we did in Overture, a song I wrote called Mayhem, and a few others. That whole period was just really, really bad. I mean, my drug habits had hit their nadir just about that time. It was really bad. I was, just not thinking straight. I was kind of in a sort of a half-ass Axl Rose emulation mode back then. I was running around with the long stringy hair and the washed out, look. And I wasn't doing heroin, but, I was trying very hard to look like I was, because I figured that was the in vogue thing at the time. And you know, without Dean and with these new confluence of influences and change in hierarchy, if you will, it wasn't very good. It was just not, the magic was just not there. And we were in an awkward situation in the rehearsal space where we couldn't actually put the drums behind the band like a normal band who was rehearsing would have them. You know, we had to have Brent off to the side, you know, because the other band that we were sharing the rehearsal space with couldn't be bothered. The great Henry Kaiser could not be bothered to break down his drum set after rehearsing. Even though I believe we were paying an equivalent part of the rent. May be mistaken about that. It's quite a bit of money. So, you know, the situation internally started off okay, and it just got worse and worse. I mean, nobody was happy with my singing. I wasn't happy with my singing. It was lyrics and music that I could not relate to, not even my own stuff. I'd written it so many years ago, and it was like a universe away. It was something I would, after having done the instrumental polymodernistic version of Urban Nightmare, I couldn't go back to doing that half-ass rock and roll. It was just, you know, but I tried, and I gave it my best shot. And then, of course, there was the question of the creative control of what we were doing. And, you know, Laurie was the most prolific writer. She had taken a leading role in the creative process in the prior incarnation of Dean of Urban Nightmare. But what was missing was the counterpoint that Dean provided. I mean, Laurie could take a basic idea, and Dean would basically turn it into a really interesting musical concept. He would arrange it and orchestrate it. He would, you know, make adjustments here and there. And see, we didn't have that. We had, you know, Paul Erie, who basically is the antithesis. I mean, an equally talented musician, but is the antithesis of the way Dean was, in that played all by intuition and feel, and had to catch him at right, you know, kind of at the right moment. You know, he was not somebody who could play a piece over and over again exactly the same way, but when he was inspired, he was unstoppable. I mean, he was unbelievable when you had just the right combination of elements going. And then you had Jamie, who was more like Dean as a player, but was very soft-spoken. He just didn't have a prominent voice in the creative process in the band, which is a shame, because I think he probably had more talent and ability than we utilized. And then, of course, I was in a place where I just, you know, I just wanted to sing. I didn't really want to be part of the instrumental process, even though I did play bass when Laurie was singing lead, and I didn't mind that. I actually enjoyed it, but it was a situation where I just felt like I just wanted to come in and do my vocal parts. You know, I wanted to be, but I wanted to have a creative input on the songs we were doing. I wanted to do songs that I was writing, and I just encountered a lot of resistance, in some ways more resistance than I expected to encounter. And I had a different approach to songwriting too, which kind of didn't really work with the way that we were rehearsing. So it just became a greater and greater frustration for all of us, really. I mean, Laurie, I'm sure, I know I was frustrated, Paul Erie was frustrated, I'm sure Brent was getting frustrated, Jamie was getting frustrated. So I think the thing that kept me hanging on with it was the fact that I knew that we had a gig scheduled at the famous Whiskey A Go-Go, where, you know, so many great bands before us had played, such as The Doors and you know, King Crimson, Gentle Giant, and every other great, you know, punk rock bands, classic, you know, everything you can think of. We had played one or two club dates and a party, and I just remember that this last party that we played, it was just so horrible. I mean, we had a terrible board mix. We were all frustrated with each other. I was late because I was trying to get people to come to this thing, and I didn't know we were supposed to be there earlier because there was supposed to be this big jam or something, and it was a big mess. And essentially, the whole situation really just began to absolutely disintegrate from that point on, with the whiskey gig not 2-3 weeks away or less than that. And basically in a what Johnny Rotten would call a blind junkie rage, I quit. And it was not just simply a question of, I think I was just about to have been kicked out anyway. I mean, it was kind of like, you can't fire me, I quit. It was vindictive, it was ugly. There was a lot of nasty words bandied back and forth. And, and now that we can look at it more objectively, I think the realization is that there was a key element in the mix that was not there with Dean's absence. And the creative process was suffering greatly for that. And that's essentially it. Basically, they were forced to reconcile the differences with Dean because they had that gig coming up at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And so, as I recall, the configuration that ended up playing at the Whiskey was basically Dean not playing guitar except maybe on one song, Paul Erie on lead, Jamie on rhythm, and Brent and Laurie as the rhythm section. And I guess they were doing the songs that we were rehearsing, except that with Dean on lead vocals instead. And it was the kind of thing that I'm glad happened. I mean, it needed to happen. I think it it was another sort of wake-up call for Dean. It was like, him being kicked out of the band was extremely traumatic for him. But being put back in the band, I think, also had a significant lesson for him in some way or another. There was a lot of cloak and dagger stuff going on during that time, secret talks and negotiations and so forth. And even though I took a bruise to the ego with it all, I was very happy that it worked out the way it did. I mean, Dean and Laurie had a synergy. There was something going on there, and and Brent was always there with the drums. He's always there. Like him or hate him as a drummer, he was there, and that, like Woody Allen says, half of I'm paraphrasing him, but basically 90% of success is just showing up.